When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello and welcome to the first Rewind to Raw of 2022. I am John Pollock, joined by Wai Ting, moments after Raw, hours before Wrestle Kingdom, and we're going to squeeze in some talking. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John, what's up? How you doing?
Not too much.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Wrestle Kingdom, Tuesday morning.
Yeah, it's a very busy week here at Post Wrestling, so... and we're already off to a busy start. I mean, we did a show on Saturday talking about day one, of course. We returned for our daily news updates today, which everybody can go and check out at youtube.com/postwrestling or on our Patreon. We were joined, John, you and I, by the Podfather himself, Nate Milton. A late scheduled appearance, but we definitely enjoyed having him as we tried to do our best to talk about the Big Swole Tony Khan story over the weekend.
Yeah, if you want to dive into that interview, Nate was fantastic. I encourage people to go check out that chat. We spent about a half an hour on the subject. So, I think you will enjoy that discussion that the three of us had earlier today. That also featured a preview for the Wrestle Kingdom cards coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're going to be back on both days with shows for Post Wrestling Cafe members with reviews of each show. We'll have a show up Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon, but those will be in place of the Post daily news updates, which will resume on Thursday. And we'll have our regular schedule this week. Tuesday night, Braden and Davey will be doing a show right after the New Year's Evil special of NXT 2.0. So they will be live at 10:15 Eastern at twitch.tv/upnextpodcast. We'll have Rewinded Dynamite on Wednesday, the launch of the TBS era, and plenty more this week. I don't want to overwhelm people. We went through the schedule on the news update today, but we will have shows covering all of the major events this week, including the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, the Battle of the Belt show on Saturday night, the New Japan versus Noah card, and Friday we'll be dropping the best of 2021 show with Wai and I making our picks along with Braden and Davey going through all the relevant categories. So that comes out Friday. I think we have something like 14 shows coming out this week.
All right. Again, we're making up for lost time. So if you've missed us, we are back. Yeah, big time.
Okay, we're going to dive into Raw from Monday night to kick off the year. Coming off of day one, they were in Greenville, South Carolina, and a huge focus of tonight's event way was the Royal Rumble. And I thought they did like a very good job of immediately sending your direction towards the Rumble and immediately establishing competitors in at least the men's battle royal with announcements and setting up, several key matches for the show as well. But I thought tonight's Raw had a really good direction with the Rumble. And I thought this was, a better than usual Raw to kick the year off.
Yeah, on the Raw side of things, it really feels like their side of the card is already kind of fleshed out. We even got a couple participants announced, at least on the men's side of things as well. I mean, we're about 4 weeks away from the Rumble itself. I feel like this is a bit early for the WWE.
You got to start that Dominic train running now, okay?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Send Dominic.
Send Dom, yeah.
Yes. So we got we started off the show and they were running through the matches that were scheduled, and then the lights go out and there in the ring is Paul Heyman, who I guess got heavy into the Tanner. Holy Christ.
I didn't particularly notice. Was he maybe he spent his winter holidays I don't know, at a resort somewhere.
It could be that, yeah. But this was enough that if you walk by this man by the makeup area, your words would have been, "Hey, man, easy." So yeah. He is there, and he is back. He is back as Brock Lesnar's advocate. He introduces Lesnar as his client, and Lesnar comes out with the championship, tosses the steps inside the ring for his own podium, and he stands atop these steps as They give a shout out to Roman Reigns, and Brock refers to himself as the real champion and wishing Reigns a get well message. And then thanks Heyman for advocating his free agency, pulling all of the strings to get him into the match on Saturday. And Lesnar will defend the title at the Rumble against the winner of tonight's Fatal 4-Way involving Big E, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, and Bobby Lashley. And Heyman explains that Reigns is vulnerable without his special counsel. And 1 week without me, he's already got COVID.
So are we to believe that Heyman was like, making sure that everybody was staying 6 feet away from Roman? He was making sure that he's wearing the appropriate mask, and that maybe Paul Heyman's following around with like hand sanitizer all the time, and he's the reason why Roman's managed to avoid COVID up until this point.
Maybe Paul Heyman was up on the CDC guidelines, and that was helping Roman Reigns travel throughout the country for all this time. And then 1 week without Heyman, he catches COVID and says, you can get over the Rona, but karma is kind of bitchy.
Okay. Yeah. What are the CDC guidelines for karma?
It's seasonal.
Is there a vaccine for karma?
Yeah. Don't fire your associate here. He runs over all of the. Then Heyman goes through all of the members of the Fatal 4-Way, and specifically like going overtime here, putting over Bobby Lashley, noting that he's never faced Lesnar, and goes over the 3 points where Lashley got the better of Lesnar in the match. He speared him through the barricade. Lesnar hit an F5 to everyone except Lashley, and then he put Lesnar in the Hurt Lock, and it didn't look like Lesnar was going to escape. But he notes in all 3 instances, Lesnar was blindsided, and that if you are able to beat Lesnar, until you're able to beat Lesnar fair and face-to-face, you're just a Brock Lesnar wannabe. And then moves on to Big E and said, we have nothing bad to say about Big E. He is a credit to WWE. We respect him, and it would be an honor if we could face him in a match at the Royal Rumble. And I was very interested to see the handling of Big E on tonight's show, and by the end of it, I would say that your optimism would be that he will be a key member of the Rumble match, but it certainly feels like he has been taken out of the title picture. Yeah,
at least for the near future, and we wonder beyond that. I can, just speaking about the Paul Heyman promo here, I mean, I think there was a real concerted effort to make sure that that Big E wasn't just going to get lost. I thought Heyman in this promo tried their best to emphasize the fact that he was a great champion, and that he does belong at this top level, and that he's not just sort of a flash in the pan, somebody that we forget about, but somebody who's to be a respectable champion. All that said, though, I mean, the promo itself was, I think, very much done to kind of weigh the audience's favor towards wanting to see Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar, which I thought Heyman did well here. I was also really interested to see like how the Brock Lesnar that we've kind of grown to love at this point, the one who kind of speaks for himself, how he would be paired with Paul Heyman. And I think the answer is that it's very much like how they do Bobby Lashley and MVP. The current Bobby Lashley, who's, gotten a lot more comfortable speaking for himself as well. You have, the Brock Lesnar saying a few words, and then you hand the mic off to Paul Heyman to do the heavy lifting. And I'm a little disappointed that we're not going to see a continued progression and evolution of this version of Brock Lesnar. This does feel like a bit of a retread from what we used to see between the two. But, who knows if this was all going to be the direction after day one, or if they had to change a lot of things based off of what happened.
I really think this is going to be very short-lived with Lesnar and Heyman. This is not a long-term, like those two as a babyface act. I do not see that as a long-term thing. And I would say coming out of tonight,
Is this a babyface act?
It's certainly, I mean, they were very complimentary towards like Lashley and towards Big E, and they ran
Heyman
down Rollins and Owens. Yeah.
Heyman's known to do that, though. Like, even as a heel, he'll put over the opponent.
Well, I see Lesnar and Lashley going in like this is going to be not so much a babyface heel dynamic. It's going to be presented as like this dream match because Bobby is almost already a babyface, and I think everyone's taking Lesnar as a babyface, and I certainly saw that as the direction here with Heyman. But I also see like I have a much higher probability I see of whether it be Heyman screwing Lesnar or somehow getting the title onto Lashley, and we go back to two separate titles on two separate shows. I see a lot less of a chance of Lesnar keeping this title till Mania after the setup tonight and just where it looks like things are going.
Yeah, I could probably see that as well. And if that's the case, I don't really see an issue with any of this. If anything, I think this increases my interest in the Rumble. Like Lashley versus Lesnar to me is a WrestleMania worthy matchup. May be more attractive than whatever they have cooking up for WrestleMania. Actually,
like the idea of Big E retaining on Saturday, and let's say they were going to go say Big E and Lashley at the Rumble. I think that they were able to take a major curveball on Saturday and turn it around. And I think they deserve a ton of credit for how they booked themselves out of Saturday. And I think we don't know the obvious comparison of what the plans were, but I find this to be a really compelling way that they got around this. It seems like it was a big shot in the arm to Raw for sure. That was evidence tonight. And you can certainly see like Big E was a bit of a casualty of this, but I think we have to kind of see how the Rumble goes. And he could very well be paired with Lashley coming out of the Rumble or even further going towards Mania. But I think they did a really great job of how they handled this with your main event falling apart on probably a couple of hours notice that they realized their main event was thrown out the window with the plans that they had.
I think so too. I mean, again, to me, though, much of that criticism will fall upon how Big E gets booked. But one of the most interesting aspects of this whole thing in professional wrestling is the unpredictability of what real life might throw at you and how that'll affect a fictitious storyline. And oftentimes, I mean, it results in something actually being better than it was, and hopefully that this was one of those cases. I certainly feel like whether or not it was always the plan, they've definitely managed to set up a good comeback story for Big E that could culminate timing wise for a WrestleMania championship win. But so much of that is dependent on their follow up and how much the audience wants to see Big E get that title back.
So then we had like this snafu where they go to Randy Orton in the back and Riddle walks up to them and just looks at Randy. But then we cut back to Lesnar and Heyman and we go to the commercial break. And then we come back and we just redo the Orton Riddle with Riddle approaching Orton. So just something you don't often see WWE where it was just like going to a shot too early.
What happened here? It was weird. Yeah, they went there. And then they almost like had a false start. Is that right? Like Riddle didn't even get out any like verbiage. They just cut to Heyman and Lesnar leaving the ring and then go to commercial. And then what was weird was when we came back from break, they didn't just decide, okay, just be together because we already saw Riddle enter the room. Instead, we had to do Riddle coming out of the shot a second time. That just really called attention to this was some error that we had here. Instead of they could have just been in mid-sentence or something, or at least already together because we saw that established before the break. Yeah, it was very strange.
So anyway, we continue here. Riddle wants to put together a rap group with Randy and his fish, Swim Shady. They go over their resolutions that include listening to Randy more, and Randy gives this speech, and it ends by him saying, "Our name is," what? "Our name is," and for you 1999 Eminem fans, this, I'm sure, struck a chord.
It seems like most of their rap references were 90s based. I mean, that sort of is the golden era, but I mean, it also is fitting with the demographic that watches this show. Is it not? They probably could have gone further. They could have gone to the 80s.
Yeah, maybe they didn't go back further enough. So Gable and Otis.
Something I realized is that Riddle and Madcap Moss essentially have the same gimmick. They both tell terribly unfunny jokes, but one is done, for heat. The other is somehow done as a babyface thing. So I don't know. Take your pick.
Yeah, I think one does have the better delivery with it, but I can't say these are characters that I count down the week until I get to see on each respective show. Randy Orton and Riddle took on Otis and Chad Gable. Gable comes out. Don't boo education. That's gross. He yells at the audience. He kissed Otis on the cheek and said that they are going to learn the meaning of acceptance. They're going to have to accept that their title reign is coming to an end. And I guess no one informed Gable and Otis that this is a non-title match, so they don't have to accept anything. And Chad referred to himself as Master Gable, and the 4 most dangerous letters in sports entertainment are OTIS. I find Gable amusing the more mic time he gets.
Sure. Master Gable.
Master Gable, yes. So there were some very short matches on the first 2 hours of this show. This went all of 2 minutes and 53 seconds. You won't believe what an RK Bro match broke down into. They got the heat on Riddle, and then he's working his way to the corner, and Gable yanks Randy off the apron so we don't get the hot tag. Riddle fires back with a flying knee, and he goes for the RKO. Otis blocks it and hits a power slam, pinning Riddle. And they are going to have to accept that they have lost a non-title match, and you lose too many of these, you might have to defend those titles.
Yeah, maybe we're 2 non-title losses away from actually getting this one, but sure, whatever. It sets up your next challengers, really continuing a story that they've been working on for the past couple weeks now. I mean, the Street Profits won that RK Bronament thing. Oh God, they won it, but really the story and the feud has not revolved around RK Bro versus Street Profits at all. They've been building this Alpha Academy thing with RK Bro for quite a while, and it seems like we're culminating with a match coming up. Did they say when?
No.
Presumably the Rumble, but it could be a TV thing. All I don't really get is I don't know. I felt like it was a really clever thing that they did with Otis always avoiding the RKO. Because he's got no neck. And yet last week, they just extinguished that by having Orton RKO this guy to win the match.
Yeah, I would have held off on that. That was kind of like an intriguing aspect to this story, was like the RKO, like save that. And and maybe a week ago, they were not going this direction with Alpha Academy, and now they are. But I agree, they kind of just threw that away last week.
Yeah, for a TV moment, like really for nothing.
Sarah Schreiber was with Lashley and MVP, and Lashley says that Lesnar fears him. We had a lengthy video on the history of Omos and AJ Styles. Kevin Patrick interviewed Omos, and Omos just put his hand over Kevin Patrick like he was Andre.
What's really silly about this is that they do these teasers, right? Where before they go to commercial, they show that, coming up next, we're going to hear Kevin Patrick talk to Omos. So we know these two are standing next to each other.
Making small talk.
Then they go through a commercial. They go through a backstage interview segment with MVP and Lashley. And then they come back to Omos. And the first thing Omos does in response to a question is to put his hand on Kevin Patrick's mouth. So Omos waited 15 minutes.
I don't have time for this.
Omos waited 15 minutes standing next to Kevin Patrick just to, put his hand on his face, which, just I think makes him look kind of silly.
Yeah, I mean, that was a long wait for that.
For that burn.
Could you
really wanted that burn?
I'm not interested in being interviewed, Kevin. Okay, we'll make do. Okay, then there was something called a 24/7 championship mixed tag match where Dana Brooke and Reggie took on Tamina and Akira Tozawa. So if Dana gets pinned, she loses her 24/7 title. You got that?
Okay, so anybody on the opposing side can pin her.
Yes.
Okay.
But she was never tagged into the match.
Yeah, so
that's a smart way to protect your title, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So Dana Brooke and Reggie, I guess they figured, hey, we're teaming up. We should really have a routine when we come out. And Reggie's like, well, what do you want to do? What if I dance? Well, Dana, can you dance? Well, watch this. The answer is no. She cannot dance. This was, I don't want to myself make a dated reference, but this was like every level of Elaine Bennis that you could imagine as she came out here. It was, if the gimmick is she has zero rhythm, she nailed this. She came down and then ran and did this handstand on the apron and then comes down as Reggie is running towards her but has to stop. This is the first time I've ever rewound an entrance to figure out what is happening.
I mean, she, her Wikipedia lists that she was a former gymnast, or at least has done gymnastics before. So you figure maybe some element of I don't know.
Well, gymnast isn't a
choreographed
dancer.
Movement.
But anyway, it was quite the entrance. Reggie never tags in Dana. Tozawa misses a boot and nails Tamina, so she's upset and slaps Tozawa, who then takes a running cannonball splash from Reggie. In a minute 13, Dana Brooke retains her title without doing anything.
No. Yeah, this was a low-quality time-fill segment, like all the 24/7 segments are. It's at the point where the crowd doesn't even respond to these anymore. So, whatever.
Becky Lynch is in the ring, and she says that everyone has hope at the beginning of a new year, regardless of their past failures. All the women have hope of becoming the Raw Women's Champion, but they won't win it. And Becky has realized that she has become a work of art. She makes you feel, because that's what good art does. And fine art reveals the truth. I am the Vincent Van Gogh. And she runs down all of the people's hopes for the new year, and that includes all of you trying to get out of South Carolina. Liv Morgan promised to win the title, but she broke her promise on the very first day of the year. So Liv comes out and makes fun of Becky's jacket and calls her delusional. She says, "No one is harder on myself than me. And I know how close I came to winning that title." And I did. She explains that she did not promise that she would win the title. No. Her promise was that she would give it her all and leave it all in the ring. And that's exactly what I did at day one.
I feel like most New Year's resolutions end up that way.
No. I didn't say I was going to lose weight.
Yeah.
I said I was going to think positively about losing weight, and therefore I did it.
Sure. Good enough.
So that's it, guys. She won at day one. Becky says, well, maybe one day you'll be Raw Women's Champion once I retire. So Bianca Belair is coming out, and she says no one is buying Becky's hype. I took a Doudrop detour, and now I've allowed others time to catch up, but now I'm back in line for big-time Bex. And Liv takes exception to this, asking if Bianca can please go back and continue her detour. And Becky suggests, why don't you two figure this out between you and let me know which one I'm going to have to face. But the two gang up and attack the heel 2-on-1, and then Belair and Morgan get into a fight. Belair goes for the KOD, but it's stopped when Becky returns, and she hits Belair with the manhandle slam. So I've got to say, Becky Lynch kind of just played these two. I thought, like at the end of this, it was like Becky Lynch. I was like, wow, she's just checkmated these two.
I mean, the moral of the story is to not get distracted, I suppose, when you're in the ring, because somebody pays attention to somebody else, and you're going to get attacked. Yeah.
Well, Liv's goal might not have been to get the best of Becky Lynch during this segment, so let's wait for her explanation of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it to me, it's painfully clear that there are only two viable stars in the women's division on this show, and that's Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. I mean, everybody else is there's such a far gulf, in terms of who is actually ready for that top spot of even main eventing. Again, I think they've really done their best with Liv Morgan. I think Liv Morgan herself, true to her resolution, I think left it all in the ring and pushed herself to a different limit. But you see the promo that she's able to cut, and then you see somebody like Bianca Belair come out and deliver in such a more charismatic way, you can unfortunately like really kind of see the divide there. And unfortunately, there's no one else to go to, because ultimately, I think the destination is going to be Bianca versus Becky at WrestleMania. But in that time, you're going to have to play musical chairs in whatever way you can to try to create a compelling matchup. And that includes maybe 2 ways or 3 ways and whatever. So, yeah, we'll see who gets the next one. Maybe it'll be Doudrop.
Well, I too assumed like Bianca is probably like you revisit that at WrestleMania, which I was surprised that they had her involved with Becky at this point. So
maybe it's just a reminder, we don't know that she'll be getting the shot. Yeah.
I would say though, the way this came off tonight, like they're going to do the 3-way next week. I think it'll be a big disappointment, because I think people are going to be very disappointed if it's Liv Morgan for a 3rd time. And it like you needed to do. Well, it's not going to be Doudrop. I guess anything's possible. But anyway, Kevin Owens finds Seth Rollins in the back, and Rollins is contemplating what he is going to do to Paul Heyman. The options are staple his lips shut, rip his tongue out, or castrate him.
Good luck.
That's none of these options were exercised by Seth on this show, thankfully. And Owen says, I think we should just go back to our original plan for the Fatal 4-Way. We work together. One of us wins. Then the other one will help the other win the title. And then the 2 of us will have the match at WrestleMania. Seth says, I love this plan. And Owens asks if he's lying. This sounds so simple.
They're constantly kind of teasing the 2 heels, trying to over-manipulate the other. But I mean, they were proven both to be very truthful in the match itself. I mean, they did
not screw one another. They worked together.
They allowed the other to get the pinfall, cheering the other on even. So they're both very trustworthy men.
There you go. Harry and Marv. Queen Zelina and Carmella defended the women's tag titles against Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash. So we had a common theme on this show, because this was the match where Vega worked the entire thing and Carmella never entered the match. So Nikki was in at first, then tagged in Nikki, and that allowed Vega to get control. And then she stopped a fireman's carry by Nikki and rolled up Nikki, pinning her in 234 after knocking Ripley off the apron, and Ripley was too late to make the save. And Rhea is getting further aggravated at this partner of hers that can't do anything right. And Corey Graves called it a one-sided victory.
Might not have been so much aggravation, but more like maybe continued disappointment. This is a story that I feel like has already gotten out of the starting blocks, but because it's kind of been, I guess, off of TV, or at least not necessarily been mentioned for a couple of weeks, this kind of just felt like a refresher. Just they had to kind of refresh the disappointment boil to set the breakup in motion again, I suppose.
They teed up Johnny Knoxville in the Royal Rumble by noting that he once fought Butterbean in a grocery store. That was in, I think, the first Jackass movie. When they mentioned this next person once fought Butterbean, I thought we were getting Bart Gunn in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, do you think that would ever happen?
Probably not.
I think not that recognizable these days.
I don't think anyone would recognize him if he made he's not going to get the surprise pop. He would among some people.
Nor do I think he'd want to. I feel like he's plenty happy without all this.
I mean, the Rumble cameo spot, it's an easy night's work.
Yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, sure. I don't know. I don't know if like there's that much nostalgia for Bart Gunn.
We're gonna find out if there's nostalgia for Johnny Knoxville here.
It depends on the stunt, honestly. Like the bar is set pretty high for celebrities. So I'm Flaming Table has to be. Come on.
Is this going to be who's going to get to eliminate Johnny Knoxville?
Maybe Butterbean will come out and
Butterbean would do it.
Him out.
I'm thinking maybe Omos does something with Johnny Knoxville.
Okay, sure. They can do something fun.
The Street Profits come out and they cut a promo earlier. They are both entering the Royal Rumble. And then Ray and Dominic enter the Royal Rumble. And Ray says they're going to be unstoppable.
We'll see.
They didn't let Dominic talk here. This was It's like the tag match scenario. They only let one person carry the load here.
Well, how much time did they have?
They had 30 seconds, but hey, Dominic could get in like a line.
I think he said gracias to his dad, so...
Well, thank you, Dominic. The Street Profits took on Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz. And Aziz started this match, and I don't know, I didn't think it was great. And then he tagged in Crews to finish off.
Who's better, Aziz or Omos?
I put Aziz ahead of Omos. Although tonight, like, Aziz, the timing seemed really off at the beginning of this, that Aziz was here. And I would say, we will get to the Omos match, but that's a very difficult question.
It might be a question for not this week, but the week later for our worst stuff.
So Dawkins is in. He hits the silencer, but then Aziz pulls Dawkins off. Aziz gets posted on the floor. So Dawkins returns, spinebuster, tags Ford, who hit an incredible from the heavens and won. Huge length here. 2 minutes and 18 seconds. The Street Profits win.
You know, just a bit of a rehab win for the Street Profits after the Arcade Bro loss last night. And just a way to serve up the Rumble announcement, I suppose.
Schreiber, this was rich. Schreiber spoke to Damian Priest. I'm going to recap this as best I can, but I promise you, this was the message he had. Schreiber explains that Damian does not have the champion's advantage tonight because if he loses by countout or disqualification to Dolph, then he loses the title. And this does make sense because he has lost by countout and disqualification to Ziggler on prior weeks. Damian says, everyone knows there's this side of me. And if I can keep the calm and cool side, the priest side, then I'll beat him. Or I will beat him with the rage of Damian. Regardless of which side comes out, I'll still be champion. What in Christ? How do you take these words and acknowledge I'm going to say these on national television? Like, could you just imagine talking like this way?
Oh boy, yeah, I couldn't even try. It's an incredibly corny gimmick, I think, by modern standards. You know, like being so deliberate with this Jekyll and Hyde thing.
It's not like it's just, it's such a WWE thing that, okay, we've got this guy who's got like this split personality. So let's do a promo where he like literally breaks down the two sides of me. It's like, we've got to just make it so painfully, like presented to you on like a silver platter of like, this is exactly what we are doing. This is the subtlety, folks. Here's how I do the magic trick.
And if that wasn't enough, like let's make his Titantron and his name tag two different fonts and two different colors so that you know exactly what's going on here. I mean, this is, as Becky Lynch has said, like they're the masters of subtlety, right? Sarcastically, of course. Like it's just what the WWE does. I will say, I mean, I thought whatever they tried with the gimmick worked tonight with this crowd.
We'll talk about the match because yes, it did work. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville are speaking in the back when Doudrop walks in, and she's pissed that Bianca Belair and Liv Morgan are getting another chance for the title, and complains. And Pearce is asking, "What are you complaining about? Are you deaf, Grandpa? Everyone is sick of the same women getting chance after chance, and I demand that Doudrop gets her first chance." And Deville does not bring up the fact that her last win on TV was October 18th. Instead, she says, "We don't just give out title opportunities around here." Yes, you do. We just saw that on Saturday.
What the fuck was the point of the Bianca Belair feud if, like, you know, Doudrop just ended up getting a title?
She lost like every match to Bianca Belair, and her punishment for losing those matches are, we'll have a 3-way next week with you, Belair, and Liv Morgan, and the winner will get Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, really. I mean, it was only a detour, right? So I guess it doesn't really count in the record books.
Well, it turns out it's a U-turn as our the rematch philosophy here. Damian Priest and Dolph Ziggler for the U.S. title. Jimmy Smith, God bless this guy, he decided to explain this from his point of view. He says, guys, hear me out. This is almost like a triple threat match because Damian Priest is not just facing Dolph Ziggler. He's also facing that other side of him.
Love it.
Yes, Jimmy, it's a triple threat match. It's Damian versus Priest versus Dolph Ziggler. I rewound. I'm like, did I hear this right? Oh my God. Anyway, Ziggler kicks off the barricade and DDTs Damian on the floor. So you've got the announcers explaining he could get counted out. This could change the title. So we go to break at the count of one. The first time when a count out could actually mean something substantial. We go to the commercial here. We come back. Guess what? The title did not change hands. Priest takes over, and then he's climbing when Bobby Roode appears and knocks him off the turnbuckle, and this leads to a famouser for a big near fall. And at this point, they really got this crowd with this near fall. And with this this interference by Bobby Roode, the close-up on Damian's face reveals that Damian has arrived. And his eyes are just fixated on Roode. He goes to the floor, he grabs a chair, and he goes to use it, but he hears the referee counting, and he's got to make a decision. Either give this man a concussion or roll into the ring with the chair. He makes the right decision. And with the chair, Ziggler's pleading, hit me, hit me. And Roode is on the apron, so Priest turns around and blasts him with the chair. He turns around, zigzag, another big near fall, and they have got this crowd at this point. Ziggler goes for a super kick. It's turned into the reckoning. Damian wins, or should I say Priest wins, as Jimmy Smith says that he kept the darkness at bay. The dark passenger is contained.
Right. So, on the one hand, I think we have just something that, I ultimately feel like they are trying to craft this show to make sure everybody understands it, including, I don't know, the 7-year-old that might be the 5-7-year-olds that are actually watching the show. Yeah. And maybe it's the 60-70-year-old as well that has trouble following, hey, is Cody Rhodes a heel or a babyface? Like, is Cody Rhodes walking through the right tunnel? That is the other extreme, where you have no idea what exactly is going on and you have to study so hard. And some people might prefer that, but that is not the type of storytelling that WWE has been known to do. Instead, they might go too far the other direction and to make sure that, everybody understands what's going on. And I will say, at least in South Carolina tonight, I think everybody in that room understood what was going on with the character. And they got into the near falls, and I think they got into some of the teases of, the Roode with the chair, a Priest, hitting Dolph, getting DQ'd with the chair and all that.
Yeah, listen, the match worked. I think it's a character that I think ultimately they, it will work for Damian Priest in this environment, because I think they love this kind of stuff. But they can go way too far with it, and I think that will be more so the norm with this guy. That will feel okay. We can, let's go a step further with this. It'll
work for a certain audience, but it'll also be a turnoff for people who I think seek a bit more, subtlety and nuance in their professional wrestling.
Well, this is probably not the show for you.
Yeah.
The question would be: is he a babyface? Is he a heel? Or is he a winner?
Well, currently he's a winner, I suppose.
That's all that matters, right? Vince McMahon is on the bat phone, and Austin Theory is back, and he apologizes for entering, and Vince says apologies are a weakness. Austin wants to ask about his rematch with Finn Balor that never happened last week, and Vince notes that they haven't seen him since that attack that Austin delivered 2 weeks ago, and Austin found a different way to beat him. Expect the unexpected, and he surprised Finn, and Vince has a surprise for Austin. He's entering the Royal Rumble match, and Austin Theory will get to face the champion of his choice at WrestleMania. Now, the most noteworthy thing about this segment is that they did a multi-camera shoot here.
Yeah, I don't know if it was simply because, hey, it's the boss, you know, like let's pull out all the cameras we have. Let's get like 5 cameras on this office meeting.
Or maybe we got a few takes and we just pieced this thing together so it made sense.
That, you know, that's probably the more likely scenario. Who knows exactly what's going on with these? All I know is that I take everything back I said about, you know, this show not playing with subtleties, because these are some of the most subtle, you know,
these are nonsensical way. They are not alluding to anything deeper.
I believe they make sense to the person who's in charge, and that's Vince himself. Somehow in his own brain, like I think he's trying to communicate something here, but to the rest of the world, including Austin Theory, I don't think any of this stuff makes sense. They are consistently some of the worst segments on this show. And that's what the man in charge of it all. So I don't know what that tells you about the whole product itself, but these continue to just kind of, I don't know, linger in, like, what have we gained here? What have we gained?
I don't think Austin Theory is over one iota as a result of these or this connection with Vince McMahon at all.
Yeah, like has the airtime even necessarily benefited him? Like, these are only like 1 minute long segments. Like, exposure is that worth anything? Like when Vince is just kind of chastising and yelling at you and calling you an idiot.
Yeah, I would say exposure is one of those arguments you make to defend something that you really have nothing tangible to glean from the positive that has come out of this. It's like, oh, he's on TV with Vince McMahon. Cool. I think these segments are brutal. The Miz and Maryse, or as Jimmy Smith identified them, Edge and Maryse, and he got corrected. They're out in the ring, and Miz had Edge exactly where he wanted him and was about to win the match and gain everyone's respect. He's a 2-time Grand Slam champion, while Edge is only a 1-time Grand Slam champion. Then his wife showed up. Edge deserved to lose at day 1. They recap the wedding vows and says at day 1, Edge hid behind his wife. What kind of a man does that? What kind of a man relies on his wife to fight his battles? And this was pretty, like, I enjoyed this, and the crowd was like screaming at him. I thought like he just played them terrific. Maryse then lists off all of Miz's attributes and why she loves him. And if Beth Phoenix was here tonight, I'd punch her right in the face. And with that, out comes Beth Phoenix. They played her music first this time, and she came out, followed by Edge, and we have a husband-wife tandem pose here with the pyro.
I liked it. Cool. I also like Beth's new look.
Yeah, she's kind of got almost like this, like, Bull Nakano hair.
Yeah, like hair up.
Yeah, it's a cool look.
It's cool.
So they enter the ring, and Beth welcomes Maryse to try and punch her in the face, but Maryse declines. Edge knew that Miz would not take the L. He's a hypocrite, and Beth does not fight my battles. And she explains it was all her idea, and they are willing to give them what they want. Edge proposes a match at the Royal Rumble between the It couple and the Grit couple.
That works for you?
The Grit couple.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Let's workshop that one.
Yeah.
And Miz goes on and on about Maryse's accomplishments before finally accepting, and Maryse is very upset that he has accepted this match. And then Phoenix balls up her fist, and Maryse takes a fall in fear of Beth Phoenix. So they are going to do the match at the Royal Rumble in St. Louis.
I thought crowd reacted pretty well to this, you know, as I expected. Like these intergender matches between real life couples always do well, and I don't have no doubt in that stadium, the audience will react really well to this as well. Now,
will we get a skit with Miz and Maryse like they did for the Total Bellas spoof a few years ago?
Oh, okay. What would the skit be?
Oh, they could be like, you know, in like a log cabin somewhere as like lumberjacks, believing like that's where Edge and Beth Phoenix live, out in the woods.
Sure. Yeah. We've already seen the inside of Edge's house.
We have. They have orange juice, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Stuff to build
kind
upon.
Of it. Yeah, not as much as Total Bellas. To really
not as much
with.
Material there, no.
Yeah.
Kevin Patrick spoke with Big E And Kevin says the odds they were stacked against you at day one. How motivated are you to win tonight? And Big E explains that being champion meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to a lot of people. There's no shame in losing to Brock Lesnar, but we don't get kicked and stay down or wallow in self-pity. We make sure our next chapter is our best chapter, and I can right all the wrongs tonight and start my path to reclaim what is mine, and I'll be damned if there is a soul on earth that can stop him. I thought this was like a welcome promo from Big E, and so often we see when a champion loses, and the worst thing is when they are booked in such a manner where it's nothing, and they don't care, you don't care, and instead, this was like a strong
Kofi
promo
Kingston.
from Big E.
Yeah, Kofi Kingston, his own partner.
Yes.
I mean, I think the biggest example of somebody who really gave us a very unsatisfying reaction to a major, heartbreaking championship loss.
Even though you did observe Way that time he was squeezing something in his hands out of anger.
People looked way too deep into that. Then I think.
Oh, guys, he's mad.
Yeah. Oh, they're building something here. He crushed the cookie. Yeah. Just you wait. It's all a build to the Mania. I mean, we could be doing the same for this, but I will say this was a very, very important on-camera appearance for Big E. The first reaction to his championship loss, and I thought Big E. He gave us a lot of emotion here. He gave us a lot of subtle emotion. When I say the show, is not really known for his subtlety, there are certain performers who definitely break that mold, and I would consider Big E, at least in this instance, one of them, where I think he had to put on, he conveyed that he had to put on a brave face, but you can tell internally he was really struggling with the loss, and it came across in this interview. This to me felt like the first page of a great comeback story, but the question is if it's Big E telling it himself or if the company is the one doing the writing. And again, in the weeks to come, the follow-up will really be telling about what the long-term plan is for this guy, or if he'll just kind of fall back into the upper mid card.
Yeah, I mean, it's very evident that if you are slotting people on Raw, like Bobby Lashley is ahead of Big E, but the reality is, like, their babyface situation, they cannot afford to not have a Big E, like, beyond WrestleMania. Like, and maybe this will sound silly come the summer if we look at where he is slated, but man, this is a company that desperately needs babyfaces. Bobby Lashley is not your youngest performer. And Big E, it's like, go through the baby faces on both shows, and they desperately need people that I think they cannot afford to have a Big E just being somebody in the middle of the pack and doing nothing.
Sure, yeah. But, do you expect him to be sort of at a Drew McIntyre level on the SmackDown side of things? Somebody who's not necessarily a champion, but is kind of in that space?
I think the Rumble will tell the tale. If you are putting the title back on Bobby Lashley at the Rumble and then squaring Lesnar off with Reigns for the build-up to Mania, I do see Big E being like a big featured player on Raw going into WrestleMania, unless you have something to pull out of left field for a Lashley at WrestleMania. Like, what are your options on the Raw side?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. A lot of that I think will come down to Big E's performances in these weeks without the championship. I think you could make the argument that he's more interesting chasing as a babyface than he is somebody who's defending. So these several weeks will, I think, be really important for him to garner that fan interest in wanting to see a comeback story. And who depends if anybody else catches fire in that time between now and WrestleMania.
So now it is time for AJ Styles and Omos. Delayed a week, the bell rings and Styles is telling him that he loves him like a brother. And Omos just holds up his hand to point out how tiny little AJ Styles is. So AJ attacks with leg kicks, catches Styles with a boot, and then throws AJ, whose ribs go into the post under the bottom turnbuckle. And AJ is just coming back with strikes, kicks out of the corner. He goes for the phenomenal forearm, but then gets caught, and he snaps Omos's neck on the top rope, goes for the phenomenal forearm, and just gets swatted in the chest, tossed off the shoulders, tree slam, and Omos wins in 3 minutes and 47 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, just like that. It's not a pay-per-view match. It's a Raw match that ends in 3 minutes between these two former partners. But I can't really say I'm all that surprised. I think this is at least the outcome that we all expected. It's
definitely.
It's consistent with the booking of Omos and AJ and the dynamic within their team. He was always the competent one. He was the muscle, and AJ was always sort of the fall guy who relied on and hid behind the giant, right? So, but the question is whether or not this continues. If this is just, first chapter in AJ somehow coming back and maybe taking Omos to a 10-minute match next time before ultimately losing again, or if this was it. You think this is it, John, between these two?
I given how many weeks before the Rumble, I could certainly see them doing the rematch, but I don't think this is building to something larger. Like I see Omos being a major force in the Rumble, and I imagine he's going to. They have put so much into this guy that I think they're going to push him very hard going into Mania for something big this year. So
what do you see him doing at Mania?
I do not have an answer for that.
Because I feel like, long-term storytelling, like if WrestleMania is still the place to culminate all your stories, you would think it would be an AJ match, or at least some version of a rematch between these two that's a bit more competitive. Would it not?
I just don't see them building this to something bigger when this is how you... Like, I think this was very indicative of that. Like, AJ had nothing in this. I think this was more so just to write off the tag team. And maybe you come back and do another rematch, but I think it's going to be a similar outcome.
Maybe. We'll see.
Then we go back to September at Extreme Rules when Charlotte Flair tore up Lily, and Alexa Bliss has been gone ever since. So next week on Raw, Alexa Bliss's journey back to Raw begins. And my bigger question is what happened to Veer's journey that apparently took him to main event instead of Raw last week?
He got lost.
Oh, well.
Found main event instead.
I hope that Alexa Bliss is not on the same journey back. She may never get back here. So it looks like some vignettes with Alexa Bliss, and it looks like this is going to be several weeks before she returns at the Rumble.
Yeah, and we wait to see if this is Lily possessed Alexa Bliss, or if she'll be doing a different gimmick.
Lots to look forward to. The main event is Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, and Big E. And Lashley is dominating the match early. That leads to chants of Bobby. Crowd is getting behind this guy in a big way. He goes for a spear to Owens, but misses and crashes through the barricade. Big E then hits Rollins with a belly-to-belly on the floor. He clears the desk, but the Uranagi gets stopped by Owens, and they throw E into the post and bury Lashley under the barricade before powerbombing Big E through the table for the commercial break. We come back, and Owens and Rollins are working together, but then Lashley and Big E recover, and they chase them up the stands into the concession area where Owens is put through a concession table with a Uranagi from Big E. We go to another commercial break. We come back. They're still fighting in the crowd, and it leads to Kevin Owens hitting a dive off a balcony onto all three. And this crowd is very into the match at this point. These four worked incredibly hard. I think all four of these guys, and you can throw in Lesnar there, like they really stepped up in a big way on Saturday and continued it on Monday night. Like the pressure was on them. It's like, you guys need to be the main event of this show. They had an incredible sprint on Saturday and worked super hard tonight.
I think all four of them are awesome as performers. And yeah, like you put them in any sort of situation, I'm sure on the house show circuit, they kill it whenever they have to work together. On short notice, with Brock Lesnar suddenly being added to the match, you could always depend on them. And in a lengthy 20-minute match that spans across the entire arena, you can always depend on these guys. It was a spectacular dive from Kevin Owens.
So in the ring, Owens hits a swanton on Big E, followed by a frog splash from Rollins. Big E kicks out, and then he stops the stomp attempt, and They needed 2 tries here to get Big E up for the pop-up powerbomb. It just seemed like the timing was off on the first try. Lashley returns. Rollins then stops a big ending, leading to a spear on Big E, a spear to Rollins, and then Lashley stops a stunner and gives a final spear to Kevin Owens, who eats the pin. Bobby Lashley is your winner, and they really put this over as a dream match between Lesnar and Lashley for the Royal Rumble in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, really good match. I really enjoyed the falls count, or not falls count anywhere, but the no DQ aspect that took him through the arena, making this match very different from the one we had last night. Wonderful dive from Owens. And, the finish of this was one that, like you weren't on the calls, but somebody brought up a really good, I think it might have been Hansi, like somebody brought up a great question about why it had to be Big E on Saturday taking the pinfall when you're in a multi-man match, and it could have as easily been Rollins or Owens taking the pinfall. Makes me wonder if maybe because they knew Owens was going to lose this week, I mean, maybe they thought, oh, okay, we can't have him lose twice, or somehow Rollins needed to be protected. I don't know, but I would suggest that Big E needed the protection. But maybe they're trying to, have Big E lose so that they can come full circle with him actually beating Brock Lesnar, perhaps. I mean, that would be an interesting WrestleMania thing, but I mean, that's probably not in the works because of the Roman situation. But anyway, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm sorry I'm rambling here. But anyway, all of this makes you wonder what the original plans were and what got changed in the last minute. But I'm happy that we have Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley as at least, one of the outcomes of this, because it feels like it's a really big match, especially with the way that they built Lashley.
Yeah, I mean, they teased it on Saturday, and it clearly is a direction everyone wanted, and they did a great job tonight of leading you in that direction. Like the promo from Heyman, it really did just set the stage that, okay, it's going to be Bobby Lashley with the outside chance of Big E, and led the audience in that direction. And when you got the Bobby chance, I think it was very evident that it worked. You got the outcome you wanted, and it feels like it's a fresh match. It feels like a big match for the Rumble. And I also like the different scenarios that you have here. Like you have Heyman in the mix here, that this could all be a plot with Reigns that gives an out for Lesnar to lose, and then you get the title back on Raw. There's different ways you can go about this. And it ended with Kevin Patrick in the back asking Lesnar for a comment, who was a lot more accommodating than Omos, and told him, I will see Roman Reigns this Friday on SmackDown. So not only Lesnar on SmackDown, but they're obviously confident Roman Reigns will be back in time for Friday's episode of SmackDown.
Yeah, which was a great sign. I mean, hopefully it's just that he's healthy and on the mend. So, Brock Lesnar making rare triple appearances in 1 week.
Yes. So there you go. That was Raw. Certainly it had some of its typical Raw staples that will scratch your head. But all in all, I think the direction for the Rumble, the 4-way main event, Priest and Ziggler, like what they got out of that, like I think that certainly worked for the crowd. That I came out of this episode of Raw, and it seems like the change of events that went down on Saturday, like I think they came out of it in a better position and have got kind of their focus for the Rumble, and it made for a fast-moving show that largely was enjoyable.
Whether it was because of the added focus that they had to put towards their plans because of the Roman situation, or maybe it's because it's the Rumble, it's a serious show, they're trying to book for a stadium, they kind of have to make sure that they get all their ducks in a row. Whatever the case may be, I mean, we should commend them for overcoming the very low bar of, at least giving us the impression that they have plans in place for 4 weeks ahead of schedule. So
little victories.
Yeah. So in that sense, this was a positive Raw. Yeah.
So let's go to some feedback before we sign off here. And maybe everyone completely disagreed with us tonight.
Well, there's only one. So
there you go. Everyone's asleep for Wrestle Kingdom.
You want me to do this, John?
Sure, you take it.
We got a Brett in Vancouver, our lone piece of feedback, who says, I never get to post feedback because frankly I never watch live. I just wanted to touch on the Becky segment. Am I the only one that sees both Bianca and Liv as the heels here? This is supposed to be pro sports. Liv has lost twice to Becky. Being a plucky loser doesn't make you a babyface. Bianca has lost to Becky multiple times as well. Becky comes out looking for a new opponent, and the two women she stomped most recently are the ones that think they're contenders. If only there were some sort of ranking system.
Well,
okay, well, to be fair, I mean, wait, was the second Becky Bianca match, or the third one or whatever, the one that Bianca lost last, did Becky win clean for that one?
Remember? She had grabbed the bottom rope, I think, in the last... They had the crown jewel match, but that was where she pinned Bianca, as I recall, with Sasha on the floor and grabbed the bottom rope. Was that their last match?
You know, I kind of forget, but I don't know if they think about this either. I mean, Hansi in the chat room is saying that she cheated in the last match and it was on Raw. Okay, so I'll take your word for it. And from what we saw last night, I think she was maybe supposed to cheat.
That's right. That's right. They did the super long match on Raw after Crown Jewel.
And at least in Liv's case, I mean, we suspect that maybe Becky was supposed to get her foot on the ropes for that pinfall, but we're not exactly sure. Either case,
that was clearly what was the aim. And listen, it's again we talk about a curveball thrown your way and making the best out of it. Well, they got presented with this. It most likely did not go as planned, and I think you had to build tonight's promo around something else other than the way it came off, which I agree with Brett, where Liv comes out and she just is like complaining about another loss, and there was no controversy on Saturday's loss.
But she achieved her New Year's resolution, John. So I think that deserves another chance.
She left it all in the ring. You're right. So
Doudrop, I have no explanation for that. Like, she's accomplished nothing.
There's nothing. There's nothing. There's no argument. There's nothing to pluck out of time and space to make logical sense of why she would be inserted into that match. Other than, it's Liv and Doudrop are on losing streaks, and Bianca isn't, and they're all on equal footing.
Yeah.
So we are going to sign off. Of course, we are back on Tuesday with our Wrestle Kingdom post show, and Tuesday night is the New Year's Evil card. And just a quick glance at the card: Tommaso Ciampa against Braun Breaker. Do you think that this is going to be Braun's coronation, or are they going to hold it off a little longer?
God, it's so interesting. I mean, it still feels really early, I have to say, for Braun Breaker, unless they want to fast track the guy's, ascent to the main roster. But this is also a second attempt. Can we necessarily see Braun Breaker lose twice to Tommaso Ciampa for somebody that they've been booking so strongly? I'm kind of 50-50 on this one, but I'm actually probably going to lean towards a title change here. What about you?
I think Ciampa somehow retains here, but it's done in such a way that, unlike Liv Morgan, Braun Breaker does have this match won, and it'll build to like your third match where it's like Braun puts something up, and it's like it's clearly designed as this is it. This is going to be my last.
His last
challenge.
name.
Yes, I will. I will drop. I will break from Breaker if I lose one more time. I will just be Braun if I lose.
Or maybe they do a 30-minute draw, hour draw.
I don't think we're getting an hour draw on Tuesday night. But if you saw the video package last week, I thought it was brilliant the way that they took Ciampa's promo and said how you're inexperienced, you had one mistake, and they showed him where he legitimately tripped on the turnbuckle. Like, what a great use of something that, okay, this was a mistake. It's only a mistake if we don't benefit from it. It's like, here was something, we're going to treat it like a gift, and we worked it to our advantage. I thought that was so smart to weave that into the story. No, here's this inexperienced guy who made a slip-up, literally.
There are no mistakes in pro wrestling. There are only, story elements you can use at a later time.
That's right. When Riddle walked into the shot tonight, it was a gift if they had really just stuck with it. Yeah. Mandy Rose, Raquel Gonzalez, and Cora Jade for the women's title. Mandy Rose, the despicable heel who challenged both women, although did explain that she chose both of them because she knew that they would implode with one another, and she'll just, I guess, pin one of them in the aftermath. I don't know what this match is going to look like, to be quite honest.
I don't know either. All three, I think, very different performers, but another big test for Cora Jade. Clearly, I think one of the projects that they have to really, they're really throwing her in the fire. This girl, like putting her into a War Games match, and then into like a championship match and a 3-way, no less. So I almost get the sense she's kind of playing like, you know, like she's like a fish out of water, like she's every person, you know, be in there with kind of these giants. But we'll see how she does. I don't see a title change here. You know, Mandy Rose just won it, and she's all over the advertising. She seems like somebody who's going to have a pretty lengthy reign.
Roderick Strong and Carmelo Hayes, they've made it clear the winner will be recognized as the North American champion. So this looks like the elimination of the cruiserweight title, and I
205
assume
dead.
205 dead, and I see Carmelo Hayes moving forward with this championship. I think that's what Roderick Strong is here to do, and hopefully have a really strong match with Hayes.
Yeah, I think the outcome is you know pretty predictable here, but yeah, the match itself, this could be the match of the night. I mean, well, actually,
no,
the tag team.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm really high on this 6-man. MSK and Riddle against Eichner, Bartel, and Walter. This should be tremendous. I think this is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, no mention. They showed ads for it, but like, yeah, no real cross promotion, I suppose. From the
You're
Riddle
right, because they did mention the fact like AJ's going to be on the show tomorrow night. And they made no big deal of that tonight. Like, I don't think they even mentioned that in any of the ads tonight.
I at least like I only saw like these generic New Year's Evil ads with Mandy Rose.
Yeah, that's all they aired was the generic ads. And for this week, like, you have a concentrated card, and you have AJ showing up to confront Grayson Waller. But they made, and you know, they got a bump in the number last week, and I completely can attribute that to like Waller being on Raw the night prior. Like, it seems like they're more invested in these crossovers, clearly, with like Riddle wrestling on this show.
I mean, I suppose maybe this was a night where they felt like they had too much other stuff to cover, and you know, NXT sort of
well, just the commercials, like build the commercial about like AJ shows up, like just those generic ads. Like, what is that selling you on?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But lost in all this is the fact that Walter will be making his return to NXT. He will be a part of Imperium, and man, just even Walter against Riddle or either MSK, I think those will be some great interactions. His appearances are always electric anytime he's on NXT, so I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this show. I don't know when I'm going to watch it. I don't know how I'm getting through these next couple of days of waking up extremely early, but I will make a point to watch this at some point this week.
And Braden and Davey will have you all covered. Twitch.tv/upnext right after the event, or subscribe to their podcast feed and you can get it in the morning.
All right. With that, we are going to say farewell. We will be back in just a couple of hours with a whole review of Wrestle Kingdom once again for members at postwrestlingcafe.com.
It's the beginning of the month, everybody. It is January 4th officially. We are not only giving you one Wrestle Kingdom review, we're giving you 3 of them this year. Can you believe it? And this is maybe a good time to remind people for the Saturday show, that's not going to be on New Japan World, right, John?
No, it's not on New Japan World or Wrestle Universe, and it's also not on Fight TV. So if you want to go to my Twitter, I did put out the link on the New Japan site of how you order this. I would definitely not wait to the last minute. Do go through these instructions of how to order it on the Abima app, because you have to buy coins, and then
what?
Yeah, listen. I looked at it.
Is this Chuck E. Cheese?
It does not look super complicated, but it also does not look like something you're going to just do in 2 minutes if you have never ordered off of this site before either.
So get your Abima dollars, and you can spend them at the Noah versus New Japan show on Saturday.
Yes. So that'll be your first obstacle is how can I give my money for this event on Saturday? So that is it, folks. Very packed week. It's a great week to jump aboard the Post Wrestling Cafe. We will have plenty of Patreon and regular shows coming up all week. So go check out postwrestling.com and follow Way0937. He'll definitely not follow you back, but what an entertaining follow that will always... It's quality. It's not quantity of tweets. It's quality of tweets. And that's all that I want out of Twitter in 2022. So goodbye.